can't believe this. I've worked so hard for this.
The night air over Lagos was thick with heat and distant noise, the kind that never truly sleeps. From the balcony of the 23rd floor, the city stretched endlessly, a sea of golden lights shimmering across Victoria Island, traffic crawling like glowing veins through the darkness. Somewhere below, a generator hummed. Farther away, police sirens wailed, sharp and restless, cutting through the humid air. She stood barefoot against the cold marble tiles, her silk robe fluttering slightly in the coastal breeze. The skyline reflected in her tear-glossed eyes, but she wasn't seeing the beauty of Lagos tonight. She was seeing fragments, memories, warnings she had ignored. Inside the penthouse, the lights were still on. A half-set dining table waited behind her, untouched jollof rice growing cold, 2 wine glasses poured but never raised. The television screen flickered silently with business news, his face briefly appearing in a headline about expansion and success. Her fingers tightened around the balcony railing. "I trusted him," she whispered into the night. The words barely left her lips, fragile and broken. A flash of memory cut through her mind, his smile when he first proposed, promising her a life of honor and protection. Another flash, the documents she had signed without reading carefully, because love does not question. Then the image that shattered everything, her husband stepping out of a black SUV earlier that evening, another woman's hand resting comfortably on his arm. She closed her eyes. "Everything I did was for us," she murmured, her voice trembling. The sirens below grew louder, then faded again. Somewhere in the city, something else was falling apart. She just didn't know yet that it was her own life. Before we continue, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss the next twist in this dramatic story. Inside, her phone buzzed on the glass coffee table. Once. Twice. 3 times. She didn't move. The screen lit up with his name. For a moment, hope betrayed her heart. Maybe this was a misunderstanding. Maybe he would explain. But then another memory surfaced, the bank notification earlier that day. Accounts emptied. Her inheritance gone. Her name quietly removed from the property deed. The breeze grew stronger, lifting her hair across her face as realization settled fully into her chest like a stone. This wasn't an accident. This was a plan. And somewhere in Lagos tonight, her husband was celebrating a victory built on her silence. Behind her, the phone stopped ringing. Ahead of her, the city lights shimmered cold and indifferent. She had no idea that before dawn, everything would be taken from her, and someone far more powerful than her husband would be watching. Before the sirens, before the silence, there was love. Or at least, something that looked exactly like it. In the early days of their marriage, their penthouse overlooking Lagos felt like a dream rising with the city itself. Every morning, sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, washing the marble floors in gold. The distant sound of Danfo buses, street vendors calling out prices, and the steady rhythm of the Atlantic tide beyond Victoria Island blended into the soundtrack of their ambition. She would wake before him most mornings. Softly, carefully, she would step out of bed, wrap herself in a light robe, and prepare his coffee just the way he liked it, strong, no sugar. By the time he entered the dining area in a crisp tailored suit, tablet in hand, she would already be smiling. "You're up early again," he would say, adjusting his cufflinks. "I believe in you," she would reply gently. "And empires aren't built by sleeping in." Back then, his laughter felt warm. Grateful. Proud. His business was still growing, fragile but promising. Contracts weren't guaranteed. Investors weren't fully convinced. There were nights he came home frustrated, loosening his tie in anger. "They don't take me seriously," he once muttered, pacing the living room. "They see potential, but they don't see power." She stepped closer, placing her hands on his chest. "Then show them." And she did more than encourage him. When his biggest opportunity came, a risky expansion deal requiring capital he didn't yet have, she made a decision without hesitation. The inheritance her late father had left her, land from her family's village and savings built over generations, became his stepping stone. "You're sure about this?" he asked, watching her sign the transfer documents. She didn't even blink. "We're building this together." Together. The word felt sacred then. Soon, success followed. Meetings at luxury hotels in Ikoyi. Champagne celebrations. Newspaper features highlighting his rising empire. At public events, he introduced her proudly. "This is my wife," he would say, his hand resting possessively at her waist. "My greatest supporter." But slowly, something shifted. The late nights became more frequent. His phone stayed locked. Business trips multiplied. And when she asked simple questions, his answers grew shorter. "It's just pressure," he would say dismissively. "You wouldn't understand." She smiled anyway. She trusted anyway. Standing beside him at another glamorous Lagos gala, diamonds around her neck and cameras flashing, she felt a strange chill beneath the glittering lights. For the first time, she realized something unsettling. The empire was growing. But she was slowly disappearing from it. The truth did not arrive with shouting or broken glass. It arrived quietly, in an envelope. The afternoon sun filtered softly through the tall windows of the penthouse, casting long shadows across the polished floors. Outside, Lagos moved as it always did, traffic humming, vendors negotiating loudly in the streets below, the distant call to prayer echoing faintly across the skyline. Inside, there was only silence. She hadn't meant to look through his study drawer. She was searching for a warranty document for one of his watches when she noticed a thick brown envelope tucked beneath a stack of files. Her name was written on the corner in his handwriting. Curiosity turned into unease. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. Property transfer documents. She frowned. Her eyes scanned the pages once. Then twice. The penthouse, solely under his name. The office building in Ikoyi, transferred months ago. The land investment, liquidated. Her name was nowhere. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. Her heart began to pound so loudly it felt like it might echo through the walls. She rushed to her phone, opening her banking app. The loading circle spun for what felt like eternity. And then, insufficient funds. Her breath caught in her throat. That account had held her inheritance. The money her father had worked decades for. The money she had trusted him to grow. The front door clicked open. She froze. His footsteps were calm, unhurried, almost casual as he entered the living room. But he wasn't alone. A woman's laughter followed him, light, confident, familiar. She stepped into view wearing a fitted red dress, heels clicking confidently against the marble. Young. Elegant. Comfortable. Too comfortable. Her husband stopped when he saw the envelope in her hand. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Then it disappeared. "So," he said coolly, loosening his tie. "You found out." The word sliced deeper than any scream could have. "Tell me this isn't what I think it is," she said, her voice barely steady. He sighed, as if she were inconveniencing him. "It's business." "Business?" Her voice cracked. "You took everything." The other woman crossed her arms, studying her with thinly veiled amusement. "You'll be taken care of," he added flatly. "But I can't afford emotional distractions anymore." Emotional distractions. Her marriage. Her sacrifice. Her loyalty. Reduced to a liability. The room suddenly felt smaller, suffocating. The city outside continued buzzing, unaware that inside these walls, a woman's world had just collapsed. She looked at the man she once believed in. And for the first time, she realized she had never truly known him. What she didn't yet know was that humiliation was only the beginning. The grand hall of the Eco Hotel glittered under crystal chandeliers, chandeliers that threw fractured light across polished marble floors. The elite of Lagos had gathered for the gala, the city's power brokers, socialites, and media influencers, all dressed in silk, satin, and diamonds. Cameras flashed relentlessly, capturing smiles that were sometimes genuine, sometimes calculated. She had arrived in a flowing emerald gown, the kind that caught the light with every step. Her heels clicked softly against the marble as she moved, a picture of elegance and grace. Yet, tonight, she felt the weight of every gaze, not admiration, but scrutiny. A sense of dread had settled over her chest like a stone. He appeared from the other side of the hall, impeccably dressed in a midnight blue tuxedo, hand extended toward a colleague, a charming smile on his lips. For a moment, she hoped. Maybe he would see her, acknowledge her presence, the woman who had built this life alongside him. He didn't. Instead, he passed by, his eyes deliberately avoiding hers. The crowd parted for him, laughter and conversation continuing as if she didn't exist. The chill of betrayal cut sharper than any winter wind. A waiter approached her, offering champagne she didn't want. She took it, hands trembling, and sipped. She could feel the stares now, whispers passing from one well-dressed guest to another. "Is that what happened?" "I heard." Then came the subtle but unmistakable movement of security guards. Two tall men in black suits appeared beside her, their expressions neutral but firm. "Excuse me, ma'am," one said. "You need to come with us." "Wait. What? Why?" Her voice cracked. The room seemed to tilt, as if the chandeliers themselves mocked her. "You'll understand outside," the other guard said, gesturing toward the doors. She looked back, hoping for even a flicker of recognition, a hint of remorse from the man she had once trusted with everything. But he was already surrounded by influential friends, laughing, shaking hands, the perfect host. Not a glance in her direction. The corridor leading outside felt endless. She could hear the hum of Lagos beyond the doors, a city alive with movement and light, but inside, she was invisible. The echoes of heels, the whispers of guests, and the subtle click of the guards' polished shoes became a drumbeat of humiliation. Outside, she paused for a moment, catching the cool night air on her face. She wanted to cry, scream, anything to release the tight knot in her chest. But there was nothing she could do. Not here. Not yet. The reality settled heavily, the man she had loved, the life she had sacrificed for, had not just betrayed her, he had humiliated her in front of the world. And the world had watched. Her heart pounded, but somewhere beneath the shame, a small ember of resolve sparked. This wasn't the end. She didn't know how or when, but she would rise. And Lagos, with all its lights and power, would not forget her story. The elevator doors slid open with a soft whoosh, revealing the apartment she had once called home. The familiar scent of polished wood and faint jasmine candles lingered in the air, but tonight it felt hollow, sterile, stripped of warmth. She stepped inside cautiously, heels clicking against the marble floor, her eyes scanning the rooms she had decorated with love, each piece a memory of better days. Her gaze fell on the kitchen counter. The fruit bowl was empty. The vase of roses she had placed that morning was wilted. Even the coffee machine sat cold and untouched, as if the apartment itself had given up on welcoming her. She sank onto the couch, her silk robe rustling, and opened her laptop. The screen lit up, showing her bank accounts, frozen. Notifications scrolled across, each one sharper than the last. Funds inaccessible. Assets locked. Money she had once thought secure, gone from her control in an instant. A sharp knock at the door startled her. She hesitated, heart pounding. "Who is it?" she called softly. "Delivery for Ms. Adeola," a calm voice replied. A man in a plain suit stood at the door, holding a thin envelope. He extended it without a word and retreated immediately when she took it. Hands trembling, she opened it. Divorce papers. Legal jargon sprawled across the page like a knife through her chest. The signatures were precise, calculated, final. And then, a smaller slip of paper fell out, folded neatly. "Stay quiet." Her breath caught. She read it again. "Stay quiet." No name. No explanation. Just a threat, thinly veiled, sharp, suffocating. The city outside was alive, as always. Lagos hummed with its relentless energy, Danfo buses rattling along crowded streets, the distant laughter of street vendors negotiating, the murmur of late-night parties drifting from Victoria Island. But inside her apartment, there was nothing but silence. Despair pressed down on her chest. Vulnerability coiled in her stomach like a snake. Danger was no longer distant, it had arrived at her doorstep. She sank further into the couch, staring blankly at the walls. Every picture, every decoration, every detail she had carefully curated suddenly seemed alien. Her husband's betrayal had stripped her not just of wealth, but of a home, a sense of safety, a life she thought she could trust. Tears blurred her vision. "What have I done wrong?" she whispered to the empty room. Outside, the city lights twinkled, indifferent to her suffering. Yet beneath the despair, a quiet, simmering awareness began to grow, that she could not stay silent forever. The danger was rising, but so was a glimmer of resolve. Somewhere, in the shadows beyond Lagos' glittering skyline, her life was about to take a turn she could never have anticipated. The streets of Lagos at night were alive with sound, the distant honking of okadas, neon signs flickering in alleyways, and the low hum of generators from every corner. She moved quickly along the quiet side street near Victoria Island, clutching her purse tightly, heels echoing against uneven pavement. Every step made her pulse race, every shadow made her heart skip. She had sensed it for days, eyes on her in the supermarket, a figure lingering at the corner of the cafe, cars slowly trailing behind her as she left meetings. Tonight, she knew it wasn't paranoia. Tonight, it was real. A sharp movement in her peripheral vision made her freeze. Two men stepped out from a darkened alley, faces obscured by scarves. Their intentions were unmistakable, aggressive, deliberate, lethal. "Stop right there," one hissed. His voice was low, controlled, threatening. Her knees trembled. Who are you? What do you want?" Her voice barely carried over the distant traffic. The other stepped closer, brandishing a metal pipe. "Move aside, lady, this is none of your business." Her mind raced. The apartment. The divorce papers. The warning note. It all made sense now. Her husband wasn't just trying to humiliate her. He wanted her gone. Permanently. The first man lunged, but before he could strike, a low, commanding roar echoed through the street. A sleek black SUV skidded to a stop, tires screeching against asphalt. The doors swung open, and men in tailored black suits emerged, moving with precise, almost surgical coordination. A single figure stepped forward, tall, imposing, and silent. He wore a crisp suit, face partially hidden in shadow, yet his presence carried authority, an unspoken warning that no one dared ignore. The attackers froze. "Leave her," the man said, voice deep, calm, yet carrying a threat that made the air itself tense. Confused, terrified, and relieved all at once, she stumbled back, clutching her chest. The attackers exchanged hurried glances, then bolted into the darkness, disappearing as quickly as they had appeared. The man turned to her. He didn't smile. He didn't speak further, yet the weight of his gaze was enough to communicate both power and protection. Who are you?" she asked, voice shaking. "Not now," he replied, his tone measured. "Stay alive. Stay quiet, for now." He gestured toward the SUV. Without hesitation, she climbed in, the vehicle sliding silently into the shadows. The city's lights blurred past, a glittering Lagos, indifferent to the danger that had just unfolded. As the SUV disappeared down a winding road, she realized the night had shifted completely. She had been saved, yes. But by someone far more powerful than her husband, a force she didn't yet understand, a shadow in the darkness who had just altered the course of her life. And somewhere, the embers of vengeance and justice began to spark, quietly, inexorably. The gates of the private estate closed behind them with a metallic clang, muffling the distant hum of Lagos nightlife. Inside, the world was different, the air cool and crisp, scented faintly with jasmine and sandalwood. Manicured gardens glowed under hidden LED lights, and fountains whispered quietly, masking the tension that lingered in the corners. She stepped out of the black SUV, heart still racing from the night's chaos. Every shadow seemed alive, every movement deliberate. Two tall men flanked her, their suits sharp, their eyes alert, scanning the perimeter without a word. She realized instantly that she wasn't just safe, she was inside a fortress. The main house loomed ahead, dark mahogany panels, tall glass windows, and security cameras that gleamed like watchful eyes. From the open doorway, a man emerged. His presence filled the space before him. Tall, broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, his dark eyes held both danger and intelligence. Every step he took was measured, every glance calculated. "You're awake," he said, voice calm, commanding, yet not cruel. I don't understand," she stammered, still trying to catch her breath. "Why did you save me?" He paused near a fountain, the water glinting under the moonlight. "Because he crossed the wrong woman," he said simply, his words heavy with meaning. She blinked. Who are you?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gestured toward the horizon of Lagos that stretched beyond the estate. "I know him," he said finally, voice low. "Your husband. His ambitions. His greed. He thinks he can play everyone, manipulate every deal, hide every secret. But I've watched. And I don't tolerate weakness harming those who shouldn't be harmed." She swallowed hard. This was the man who had intervened when two strangers tried to end her life. Yet he didn't strike with violence. He had calculated, controlled, a master of influence. The sound of footsteps echoed behind him. Bodyguards moved like shadows along the walls, armed, alert, silent. He noticed her glance. "Relax," he said. "They are here to protect, not to intimidate." Her chest heaved. Relief mixed uneasily with fear. She had been saved, yes, but by someone whose power and reach she could barely comprehend. Lagos outside felt smaller now, insignificant compared to the control this man wielded. "I don't understand, why me?" she asked again, voice barely above a whisper. "Because you deserve more than betrayal," he replied, eyes sharp, calculating. "And because some debts must be repaid." As she followed him further into the estate, past quiet hallways lined with art and secrets, she realized her life had shifted entirely. She was no longer merely a victim. Somewhere in the shadows, a powerful ally had emerged, one who could see the truth, and one who could ensure justice would be served. And for the first time in days, she felt a cautious, uncertain glimmer of safety. The early morning sun spilled over Lagos, catching the glass towers in shards of gold. From his office on the top floor, he watched the city sparkle, oblivious to the chaos about to engulf him. At first, it was subtle, an urgent call from an investor, a message from a lawyer he hadn't expected. But then the wave hit. Screens across the city lit up with headlines: elite businessman faces financial scandal, accounts frozen, illegal transfers exposed, tycoon under investigation, investors withdraw amid corruption allegations. His hand shook as he gripped the polished mahogany desk, the words on the screens blurring before his eyes. He had built an empire from the ground up, or so he had believed. Every contract, every acquisition, every trust he had manipulated, crumbling in real time. What is happening?" he muttered to himself, pacing. His office assistant hovered nervously, phone pressed to her ear, unable to offer any comfort. Outside, reporters were already gathering in front of his headquarters, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. The same social circles that had once toasted to his success now whispered of fraud, betrayal, and ruin. Every image on social media painted him as a villain, every article dissected his private dealings. He slammed a fist on the desk. "No. This isn't real. I built this." But the truth was out. Every illegal account, every hidden offshore transaction, every falsified document, leaked. The empire he thought unshakable was shaking violently, shaking under the weight of evidence meticulously placed. And somewhere in the shadows, watching silently, the African crime lord observed. He never lifted a hand directly. No threats. No confrontations. Every move, every collapse, was orchestrated quietly, strategically. The law, the media, the market, they were all tools. And his opponent, the man who had caused so much pain, would take the fall himself. E-husband's phone buzzed incessantly, calls from desperate investors, angry partners, and legal representatives. Each ring was a reminder that control had slipped from his grasp. He sank into the leather chair, sweat running down his temple, heart hammering with panic. I can fix this, he whispered, though even he didn't believe it. From his distant vantage point, the city continued to move, indifferent to his despair. The crime lord didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He merely ensured that justice, slow, deliberate, and poetic, was delivered. And as the husband watched his life unravel, the truth became impossible to ignore. His power was an illusion, his betrayal laid bare, and the woman he thought he had destroyed had an unseen ally, one whose reach and influence were beyond his comprehension. Outside, Lagos woke fully to a new reality. Empires could rise overnight, but some could fall just as quietly, under the weight of a carefully placed hand. The morning sun bathed Lagos in a soft golden glow, scattering light across the bustling streets and shimmering glass towers. From her office balcony, she could see the city alive, okadas weaving through traffic, market vendors calling out their prices, the distant hum of the Atlantic Ocean reminding her that the world moved on, no matter the storms within it. But she had moved on too. The documents lay neatly on her desk, final, legal, indisputable. The assets she had once lost, the properties, the investments, even the shares in the companies she had helped build, restored. Every paper she signed carried weight, but also freedom. Each signature was a declaration, she was no longer a pawn in someone else's game. She rose from the leather chair, smoothing the tailored blazer over her shoulders. Walking through the polished corridors of her new office building, the click of her heels echoed confidence, authority, and purpose. The receptionists greeted her with professional respect. This was her empire now, her decisions, her vision. Outside, the city moved with its usual rhythm, but she felt a quiet, almost intimate triumph. Lagos was still vast, chaotic, unpredictable, but it no longer held power over her. The betrayal, the humiliation, the fear, they had forged her into something stronger, sharper, unyielding. She paused by the glass doors of the main entrance, inhaling deeply. Memories of sleepless nights, empty apartments, and shadowed threats flickered in her mind, but they no longer weighed her down. Instead, they reminded her that she had survived, that she had reclaimed her life. A sleek black SUV rolled slowly past the building. She noticed it, familiar, imposing, silent. In the passenger seat, partially obscured by tinted glass, was the man who had once saved her life. The African crime lord. He didn't step out. He didn't approach. He merely watched, eyes steady, assessing, respecting. She smiled faintly, not out of affection, but understanding. He had intervened, yes, but he had never claimed ownership over her life. He had ensured justice, not possession. Respect, not control. Turning back to her office, she allowed herself a quiet laugh, soft and triumphant. She was her own authority now. Every decision, every deal, every step forward would be hers alone. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt a sense of peace. Not the naive kind, but the hard-won peace that comes from knowing you have survived the storm and emerged stronger. The city stretched endlessly before her, alive and demanding. And she walked forward, into her building, into her office, into a future she would no longer let anyone dictate. The skyline glittered, indifferent yet magnificent, and for the first time, she truly felt like she belonged in it.